Hi, this is Jack Butler, and this video is about where Tony Robbins has it wrong. I want to start off by saying I am a fan of Tony Robbins. I used to work for one of the London-based promoters of Tony's London seminars, so I got to be pretty immersed in his material. I got to meet up close some of the people that work closely with him, but he's not someone I know personally. And he's a phenomenon, you know, whether people like his particular brand of personal development or not. I think we can all step back and say this is a phenomenal human being, someone who's really put their heart on their sleeve and who's made a difference in a huge number of people's lives. You know, it's had a real impact on the world. The purpose of this video is really to help you locate the value of someone like Tony Robbins, and to also think about some of the places where you may be developing where they may not be the answer to the developmental challenges that you have. So I'm going to outline 3 areas in this video that I would say, from where I'm coming from, might be limitations of Tony's teachings or places that you might want to explore for yourself. So the first thing I want to look at is what I would call manipulating experience. So simplistically, there's at least a couple of ways that we can orient to our experience. Right? One is I'm having an experience that I don't like or that could be better, and how can I change that? Right? So let me say I'm in a frustrated state. I could do some kind of NLP maneuver. I could anchor myself into another state. I could do a massive change in my physiology, which is a big Tony Robbins teaching, right? And I could move myself into another state of experience, one that might be more expanded or more empowered. And that's a really important ability to do that. My observation is that at a certain point in our inner work, for those of us that are on a inner work path or a spiritual journey, that we actually want to metabolize our experience. And we may be less interested in defaulting to having to change one state to another. And rather than doing a sort of surgical maneuver, in some ways, Robbins' approach can be quite surgical, right? Like, you're in this sort of state, hey, let's take that out and let's put this kind of program in, or this way of doing you, or this way of doing your physiology. It might be that our orientation is more towards experiencing our experience, feeling our feelings, noticing what's coming up, and having more of an orientation of inquiry to our experience, really getting present to it, understanding it, allowing it to unfold, seeing what's there. Because if it's true that at a certain level of inner work, we're actually not our personality and we are our essence, or something that's deeper than our personality, then anything that is kind of changing things at the level of personality, however sophisticated, is kind of missing a deeper context to our experience. I'll give you a kind of correlate of this, right? You could have some negative beliefs, and we could work with you to have some more empowering beliefs about yourself. And at a certain point, it doesn't matter whether you have positive or negative beliefs about yourself. It's more about being with what is. So it's not about taking one belief or program, replacing it with another. It's actually about having no programs. You see, there's a kind of difference. I used to come up against this in our work with young people, because I would have members of staff that would want to tell young people not to believe anything, you know, to sort of be in this more meditative, spiritual, yogic orientation of no self. But until you can get there, it's actually more useful for people to reprogram their beliefs to something more positive. If you live in a really tough community, you come from a tough background, or, you know, a highly dysfunctional family, or, you know, an underprivileged part of the world, probably to get out of that, you're going to have to bootstrap yourself. And probably to do that, it's going to be really powerful to have some inspired beliefs about who you are and who you can become. That's where someone like Tony Robbins is really powerful. You know, he's talking to that guy that's a bit like him, right? Who was in his early, 20s or late teens, who was disaffected, who was down on life, and who needed to turn it around, and who needed to get some massive inspiration. At a certain point in developmental journey, that's less what we're up to, right? It's less like we're bootstrapping and reprogramming ourselves. It's more that we're trying to unwind any sense of a fixed self so that who we are can spontaneously arise in any moment. It's just a different level of development. It's a different orientation to reality. And if you're still in the reprogramming thing, you might be missing the more essential part of yourself, which is not something that we can point to and call a specific belief. And by the way, if you can do both those things, notice when you have a negative belief and unroot it, but also not attach to the new positive belief, but hold it in a deeper context, you're really doing something. You know, you're probably into some profound developmental territory at that point. The second thing is about beingness. I heard Tony say on his Tim Ferriss interview that, you know, he struggles to sit down and meditate. And that makes sense, right? From someone who is, you know, hugely hardworking, very ambitious, driven, has created so much impact in the world, has so many products and programs, and, you know, has had this, in the past at least, this sort of like 265-day-a-year grueling seminar schedule. And when Robbins does a seminar, he's not half-assed about it. He's doing, you know, 12-hour, 14-hour, 16-hour and more days. So it would make sense that someone that's so oriented to results, you know, and that's his whole focus of his coaching, is getting results. You know, he claims he has a PhD in results. It's one of his jokes, that there's maybe less orientation to beingness. And I would imagine, understanding the Enneagram system, which is a human typing system, if you don't know about it, check out my videos on the Enneagram, that Tony's a 3. And the essential challenge for 3s is to be in touch with their beingness. There's such an orientation to doing and doingness that it's difficult for 3s just to sit down and do nothing. You know, because there's a constant drive to want to achieve, be productive, and be valuable. It's almost like the unconscious or the missing childhood message was, you are valued for who you are, not for what you do. You're valued for who you are, not for what you do. So when someone can't meditate, when they can't sit still, there's often a quality of their beingness that is difficult for them to be in touch with. And again, that's fine. You know, if you want to learn more about beingness, you can go and be with a spiritual teacher. You may not need to go be with Tony Robbins. But the orientation of doingness and results in his kind of way of doing things can be mildly addictive to people, and can actually potentially rob them of a quality of intrinsic experience, of authentic emotional experience, of deep relatedness with themselves, of a trust in reality that isn't to do with anything that you have to make happen, and a valuing of yourself that has nothing to do with what you produce or who you become. That's what might be missing if you're only in this type of teaching. So if you want to unwind your personality structure, you know, in the Enneagram world, some people say Tony Robbins is a type 3 at a level 5 of development. Now that would be hard to prove or disprove, and I'm not particularly interested to label people in that way. But what it might mean is you've got someone who's more in their personality than some other teachers that you'll find out there. So if you are starting to be interested in or have an orientation to unwinding your personality structure, this may not be the teacher that's going to do that for you. And then the third thing is maybe just to talk about the paradigm, the deeper paradigm that I think Robbins operates from. And this is just my view. I could be wrong about this, but for any of you that are familiar with spiral dynamics, integral theory, or any theories that posit that there are stages of development to the individual and to culture that have different worldviews, that have different patterns of attention and things that they value, I would imagine that the Robbins paradigm is a modernity paradigm. Orange in spiral dynamics, achiever in Suzanne Cook-Greuter, or any of the sort of stages of ego development. It's very much about striving to be someone. It's very much about who is it that you really want to be, what's the big dream, how can we make that happen by taking massive action, by reprogramming your beliefs, creating some certainty in your life, getting your body, your physiology in shape, and just kind of having you really go for it. You know, it's inspiring. You know, sometimes I talk to people about the Rocky and the Rumi, right? We need that inspired, motivated part of ourselves, which is the Rocky. And Tony Robbins uses the Rocky story, he tells it really well in his seminars. And then we need the Rumi. We need some contact with the mystery of our depth, of our contemplation, of our longing, of our relationship with Source, the all of everything. And it's hard to have both of those things. If you look at Amazing Grace, which is a fantastic movie if you've not seen it, which is about William Wilberforce, the head or the figurehead of the abolition of the British slave trade, you know, he's talking about that Rocky-Rumi relationship, as I would call it, that desire to be in the arena, make an impact, making changes, you know, creating a fairer, more just society. And, you know, this was a Christian reformer who believed in that strongly. But at the same time, you know, he's got a country estate that he inherited, and he just wants to roll around on the grass and commune with bees and talk to nature. And so it's like we have these these different sides of us. I feel like the Robbins work is very rooted in this orange Stryver achiever orientation, which is very much about what works and how can we maximize and how can we optimize for that. And it's less of a postmodern view. It's less interested in some of the innate qualities of our being, of our deeper self-discovery, of unwinding some of our adaptive strategies. Although, to be fair, Robbins does do some kind of interventions that are like that. But just a more relationship with our interiority, regardless of any external circumstance or result that we might produce. And it's also, from an Enneagram perspective, it's a type 3 orientation, which again has to do with achievement, striving, being a hero, being a role model. And there's a really healthy side to that. I mean, I've seen Tony Robbins on stage. He is a very charismatic and inspiring guy. And I remember, he was inspiring in my life. I changed what I was doing, seeing him, because I was like, yeah, I'm not showing up with the kind of passion that I would like. But that orange type 3 thing is like this double focus on achievement and doing this that maybe has less place for contemplation, meditation, beingness, intrinsic experience, just really being with the whole palette of our emotions. Do you want to take a negative emotion and transmute it into a positive emotion? Or do you want to be in an orientation that says there's a full spectrum of emotions that are part of being a human being? If Beethoven was only in positive emotions, he wouldn't have composed, I think, a lot of the things that he composed and that we're really grateful to have. Part of being a human is that it's tragic at times and it's lonely and that we suffer and that many of us walk around with a version of a fractured or broken or fragmented heart. Now, you could come in with a program to reprogram me around that, but at a certain point, it's actually not what I desire. I desire to be with and metabolize and have deeper, richer contact with the full range of expression of being a human being. And I actually have less fear around negative emotions. I don't want to stay in patterns that don't serve me, but I might notice at times I'm disappointed. I have down days and that I'm resigned, and I don't always have to flip that on my head. So that's part of the value of understanding the deeper paradigm of the person that is teaching. What is the level of consciousness? What is the stage of development that it's rooted in? And no one is exclusively in one usually, but there tends to be a center of gravity. And what is the type orientation, and how much work has the person done to relax the grip of their type? Because to some extent, when we're in our type, which is to say when we're in our personality, one of the 9 personality trances, we're never going to be fully relaxed, because our personality knows that it's not the biggest game in town at some level, that it's not on completely safe ground. We all have one. We all need one in a way to healthily develop and to function in society. But there's something deeper than that, which actually has a more solid foundation in reality once you start to inquire more deeply into it. So it's really useful for you to be aware of your teachers and to make sure that your teacher's not just teaching you a better way of being in their or your personality, so that you can actually separate out what is a useful life strategy from, is this just a more evolved way of being in my personality? Because if I don't want to be in my personality, I might need a different way of proceeding. So there are some of my thoughts on the great man Tony Robbins. I love him. I love the things he's contributed. And as we push into some higher levels of development, you may need some other things to support you on that journey. This is Jack Butler. If you liked this video, please like it, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on a video soon.